Good evening. This is Talking Devils, the Tactics podcast, looking back at Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. Great game to pick the bones out of this week. Joined by all the gang. Tony's back from gallivanting in London again. I don't know why I'm saying that again, because he was here last time. And it seems like I'm picking on him for going to London, whereas I'm not picking on Mike for living in London. How are you doing, Mike? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, gents?
Not bad. Tony, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Getting there. Lots of stuff happening, family stuff happening. So I've been looking forward to this, and talking about how nice it is to draw a game and not feel lucky that we stole a point.
I know, right? I've been like dabbling on that one, on the side of the fence. Where am I going with this? Am I positive that we drew and we didn't lose? Or am I negative that sort of the winning run is over? I don't know. Hi, Tony. Tough times. If anyone knows, follows me on socials, buried my dad last week, and it's just been a rough year. I don't know anyone listening or watching, but I feel like it's weird. This podcast started out as like, oh, we're doing tactics and everything like that, and it is a good thing for that. But I think over the sort of weeks, it's been a nice little tool for our mental health as well. All three of us really good, sort of like men's chat, and the WhatsApp group is following like that. If we're not hurling expletives at Luke Shaw, or if I'm not picking on Tony for being a theatre buff, then we're generally supportive of each other as well. If you're listening or watching live, if you're listening back on the audio, we're always here to talk if you need someone to talk to, not just here to moan about United. Although that's what we're going to do for the next half an hour or so. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. We'll all get our chance to have a little go on what we think of it. Get in the comments, tell us what you think of it. If you're watching it live, like, subscribe, share it on your socials if you can. But before we go into that, Tony, from a tactical point of view, Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2, you've got all the ethereal elements of Sean Dyche's first game, all the unquantifiable things, like the atmosphere of the City Ground after they've been so rubbish all season, that they're up for it because Manchester United are coming to town. Then you've got the cold, hard tactical analysis, which is where your brain comes in. Where do you think, first of all, before where you think United went right or wrong, do you feel it was a positive result, a positive performance based on a tactical analysis point of view?
Yeah, I think tactically going forward, you can now definitely see all the things that we've been speaking about in this pod over the number of weeks: the wide play, the forward runners from deep areas, the link with the striker, supporting for the full-backs, getting up the pitch, and then that's extra space for the two centre-backs stepping forward. I think you saw all of those things in the game at the weekend. We seem to, as a football club, have a knack of catching other teams just after they've sacked a manager. I'd love to spend a little bit of time seeing who gets to play teams after they've sacked their manager the most. I'm pretty sure we'd either be first or second, and that always brings with it lots of problems for you. And then when you add in Sean Dyche, who is a very underrated football coach, in my opinion, doesn't get the credit he wants, I think, because of the way he looks and the way he sounds. He doesn't get the credit he's due because the way he looks and the way that he sounds. Quote an old Sam Allardyce thing: if he was called Sean Dyche, he probably would get a lot more from the press down your way. So I knew it would be hard on Saturday. I knew they would run a lot. I knew they would make it difficult for us, and I knew set pieces would be a problem. But they're always a problem. Crosses into the box. So that's one of the things we'll talk about. But generally, I think a point in the circumstances is a acceptable result.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with you. I was falling down on that side of it, but I mean, you never know. It's such a instantaneous, reactive kind of environment at the moment. Sport in general, football in particular, Manchester United in hyper particular. Mike, Tony's hit the nail on the head with that one, hasn't he? It's not so much that we can see the system is starting to work, but United's problem, and you might even say this throughout the managers, but certainly with this one in particular, the issue first of all was that we didn't have the individuals for the system. Now we're actually seeing the system do what it's supposed. Well, with the point of what the system's supposed to do, at least. But then we're now seeing the individuals sort of not being able to step up. So where United are failing, and we'll talk about them in a moment. Tony's prepared quite the show for us. But where United are failing at the moment is that individual. Like so you know, where are you feeling on this? Are you feeling like are we being too generous here, or do you think that no? It looks like in general the manager's starting to get what we want to see. It's just that the players aren't good enough to do that.
Evening, gents. Evening, everyone. I think it depends where the ball is on the pitch. If the ball's in the final third, you can see what he wants, how he wants his team to play. If the ball's in the middle third, you kind of get what he wants to do. If the ball's in the defensive third, and depending where in the defensive third, if it's wide areas, I'm not sure I know what he wants. And that's maybe not because of the system, but the players. And Tony, and I want to, jump in on what Tony's going to take us through in a bit. But I think there's also the intangibles as well, like psychologically. How did these players cope in adversity, going a goal down, taking the lead, then going 2-1 down as in this game? I think Amorim made quite an astute point, quite a clever point when he said we would have lost this game last season. And I think he's right. And for him to say that publicly, I think that will be a good fillip for the current players. I think it's a good thing. What I want going forward is that you go 1-0 up and you've got quite a lot of dominance, is to go 2-0 up, 3-0 up and finish the game. Having to come back from behind is great, but not against a team that was in the bottom 3 or 4 teams, and also having come off a really, really good stretch of results. So yes, I'm sort of half and half here. Yes, I can see what he's doing, depending where he is, but also we need to consider the intangibles, a psychological way of how a player and how a manager and how a team reacts and to situations. I think that's important as well. And you can't really measure it. You can only look at it and surmise and with conjecture and debate it. But him making that point, I thought was quite an important one.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, especially considering the points he made about this being, in his opinion, the worst United team in history. Do you know what I mean? He's got to use those moments to come across, and it can't always be about winning. So I think, you're probably right that he's got to use. Every single manager's got to use that psychological element to try and curry favour with the players. And it is interesting. I know you said that about the psychological element, and we talk about this every week on this podcast. And it is meant to be black and white analytical, but I mean, we would all choose to support the club that has this sort of spiritual quality around it, where all these unquantifiables play a massive part. And I'm glad that all three of us are talking about it in that kind of context, so we can go, all right, well, we could talk about the black and white and where players are supposed to be and stuff like that, but then also acknowledge the pressure that's on the individuals in certain games or in certain moments, and the level and the ability and the sort of ceiling that's expected of those players and things like that, which we'll dig into now. So United 1-0 up, Casemiro scores with a free header, Forest complaining about the award of a corner, which, technically, perfectly right to do so. I mean, Sean Dyche complaining about that he could see the ball was in, when from his position, all of the ball was over the line, is a very bold call to say that he could see that it was still in play. Obviously the ball was still in play because it's thing, but the whole of the ball was over the line, Sean. So if you're telling me that from 50, 60 yards away, you're able to tell me that you could see that it wasn't over the line from there, wow, that is some sight. And it was one of those. Half the crowd, well, most of the crowd thought it was out, was in, and then the few thousand United fans thought it was out and it gone for a corner. I don't think it necessitates all this demand for a rule book change, but it's what it is. That they were complaining about that. they were lost in concentration. Casemiro scored with an header. I mentioned this on Monday's podcast. I need to mention it again because it's such a ridiculous point. Nothing to do tactically, but Lee Henry was on the Premier League commentary feed internationally, and he said, "You allow one of the shortest men on the pitch to score." And Casemiro was a danger in both boxes. He's 6'2", and I don't know if Lee Henry is just he can't because he was a short lad himself. Still is a short lad. He didn't get any taller. But he's imagining that Casemiro's as short as him. I'm not quite so sure. Anyway, I don't think there's anything tactically to write home about that. But that goal, it was a straightforward goal. Textbook for the equaliser as well. It was just a fantastic shot from Ahmad. United doing well because they don't usually score from corners. So to get two from set play, I think the second one was technically from a set play as well. Was good going, but nothing. I wouldn't say anything massively adventurous tactically. However, defensively in that start of the second half was horrendous. I mean, they had a great plan at the start of the second half, which seems pitifully basic, which was attack the wide areas. First of all, Ahmad, get Sean Dyche could be heard screaming, "Get at him," which I mean is proper Sunday League style, and also embarrassing that if the manager's deploying Sunday League tactics and they're working, you need to address them quick. But it's the first time someone's properly exploited Ahmad in that area, got him on his wrong side defensively, exploiting two weak areas of him, and the third weak area in the air, and they scored a goal through Gibbs White, a weak challenge from Ahmad. And then a defensive mix-up. Yoro and is either Shaw or Delete, I can't remember which, edited it down, and it was there for the lad who was complaining about the corner to score. United showed good resilience to come back. Tony, we'll go on to what your grumbles are then. So let's start. I'll pull up the first slide, and you talk us through what's going on.
So the first one I've taken is right at the start of the game, Forest's first attack, and it's more of an illustration of what happens later on. So we've got Diogo Dalot facing up. Forgive me, I don't know who their number 14 is, but the wide player from Forest facing him up. Now, one of my things with Diogo Dalot is that he does not defend 1v1 even remotely efficiently. Like as you can see, his body language here, his front foot, so his left foot here, and his right foot are positioned so his body is open, his shoulders are open to the side of the pitch, and he's trying to entice the player to go down the line, which is fine. But you need to do that when your front foot is in line with his front foot. So it's no surprise here that number 14 ends up cutting inside. You can see Cunha's body language because Cunha's worried about the overlap. What needs to happen here, in my opinion, is Dalot needs to be two yards to his right to force 14 to look down the line and block off the centre of the pitch. That's full-back defending. He's playing as a wing-back. I take the point that he's playing on the opposite side from his stronger foot, but I will counter that point slightly. A right wing back playing as a left wing back against an inverted winger who wants to cut inside is actually defending on their stronger foot because you'll be cutting in onto their right foot. So I don't want to give too much credit to Dalot on that one, but he just fails to show the player down the line. He fails to defend it inside, and we see this a lot with him. And I just feel that when Dalot plays on the left-hand side with Luke Shaw as the left centre-back, we're in a world of trouble. And when you add in Ahmad on the other side, who is essentially having to learn a new position on the job in the Premier League, going to places like Nottingham Forest, it's not ideal. So Dalot here needs to sort his body position out so that the winger has to go down that channel, down towards the touchline. You can defend better. Here we have it. This is right at the start of Forest's first goal. So you see Dalot as a way out, 1v1. He's got himself in a much better position to defend 1v1. He's got the player in the wide channel. However, you can see again his foot that's closest to the touchline is probably about 2 yards advanced to the player's foot that is touching the ball, which just opens up the inside of the pitch, which is the opposite of what you need him to do. You need him to keep him there. He has to close the distance. He has to make it difficult. He has to stop him coming inside. And he does none of that. You can move on to the next one.
It's so beautiful to watch. That's the thing. So yeah. Number 3.
This is now goal 2. So the ball, that first one, the last one, the ball comes in and they score. This next one, the ball has come all the way over from the side closest to where I've put the number 3. Luke Shaw is under it. Dallo is on the edge of the box. Do you see him? With, I think that's Bruno. Sorry, it's Bruno. Casemiro's out on the other side with Mbeumo, who's come back in to help. We should be in a relatively decent position to defend this scenario.
Yeah.
Just purely, nice and simple. They've got 5, and we've got 9. It's a 9v5 in our favour. We should defend it an awful lot better. Shaw lets the ball bounce. Move on to the next one. Ball ends up over in the corner. Now, Shaw goes out. He does the right thing. He goes out and he presses 1v1 and he tries to keep him there. You will see our friend Diogo in the middle of the box, between the 6-yard box and the 18-yard line. Just in the middle there, marking a wonderful bit of space. And as one of my grassroots coach, and I'm sure a lot of people's grassroots coach will tell you, space has never scored a goal. It's always a man that scores the goal. So we can move on to the next one. So there's Shaw out there, Dallo's inside. Now, what ends up happening is they play that ball back, and then it goes back out to the wide man. Luke Shaw has started heading back into the box here. Luke Shaw is now, having been in a good position, abandoned that position and decided to track the runner into the box. Now, the runner plays the first pass, and the runner is actually the man who scores the goal here. Diogo Dallo, in our system, is the left centre-back right now. All he has to do is tell Luke Shaw, who's a natural left-back, to stay there. Just stay there. Just defend what's happening in front of you. You don't need to track the runner, because the runner is coming to me. I will mark him. No problem. These are top level footballers we're talking about here. And the two of them can't seem to communicate with each other. This is not the first time this has happened. It's just, I've got to the stage now where I can't watch it anymore, because it's the same thing all the time. Diogo Dallo there is in a good position as a left centre-back. Luke Shaw has come away into the box. He doesn't need to do that, but he has done it. Dallo should tell him to stay. And we probably can force Forest back, because we've got a 3v2 out there. Move on to the next one. So here we are. The scenario has progressed slightly. Luke Shaw has now ended up in the middle of nowhere. You've got Cunha trying to block the ball from 6 or 7 yards away in the wide channel. The cross comes in the middle of the box again. Mike, you tell me if I'm counting this wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against 3 in the middle of the box. Now 37 here for Forest is our friend who's came away from the wide area and Shaw was tracking him. Look at the distance he's got away from Shaw now. Shaw's decided, I don't know what he's decided, but he's now standing in space and he cannot influence the ball. He's not influencing a man. Dallo's in there. Dallo has to see the danger and get against number 37. And you can go on to the next one, which is my final one. This is how we end up. So Dallo ends up the wrong side of the player who's came from the wide area that Luke Shaw was tracking. The obvious thing for everybody here is that De Ligt and Yoro get in each other's way. That's fine. Everybody can see that. One of them has to decide that I'm the guy that's going to win the ball. They don't. We've went from a 7v3 to conceding a goal. But for me, there's Shaw, who went out to the wide area, then came to the edge of the box, then tracked a man into the box, then watched the ball go over his head, and is now standing watching the same man that he was tracking score, who's an inside shoulder of Diogo Dalot, who also at no point, any point whatsoever in this whole scenario, gets against a man. And that's criminal. It's absolutely criminal for defenders at this level, both international defenders, to not be able to communicate, to not understand that you have to get against a man, to not be able to defend 1v1. And my whole point with this is the system going forward, we look a lot sharper and a lot better. But we are so weak and vulnerable in these wide areas. And it's real basics that you can fix. But modern fullbacks, modern wing-backs don't want to defend 1v1. They don't.
Yeah.
They would much rather be that way than defending 1v1. And Diogo Dalot, I hate to say it, is one of the worst 1v1 defenders in the whole division.
Yeah. Well, apart from that, Mike, pretty good. No, so the point about the goal, I mean, you can't. Tony's been so thorough there that, I mean, the goal has been explained. Another way of looking at it, historically about United, especially in the last sort of 5 years or so, is accountability, where a defender doesn't make a mistake. Dalot and Shaw, in that passage of play, metrics, they've not made a mistake that have led to a goal. That's the way that the statistics will, the eye test shows you everything that Tony's just said, but the metrics don't show you a mistake that's led to a goal there. But their lack of accountability, their lack of positional awareness has led to an error from someone else. And not just conceding a goal that couldn't have been avoided, that it's led to an error from someone else. And your own Delete, who've been generally our best defenders this season, have ended up basically making an unfortunate error that's left us chasing the game. But if anything sums up, I mean, we're talking like 5 years of problems that are summed up by that kind of goal that we've conceded. And I think, I mean, I don't know how a manager, apart from dropping the players, I mean, that seems like the obvious call here. But I mean, if it can be avoided, like Tony's saying, there's some very basic things in there. Luke Shaw's got a habit of doing what Tony just pointed out. Dalot, maybe not a habit because he's not always on the left, but very basic things that you point out, defending on your stronger foot, making attackers attack on the weaker foot, and he just doesn't do those basics. Like I said, they don't count as individual errors, but they are on the eye test. They're right there. They're not in the metrics. They don't say they cost us anything, so they're squeaky clean, really, because they were at the scene, governor, but they never saw a thing. What do you make of? I mean, Tony's right there. The analysis there is spot on. But I mean, that's United's big problem.
I would even take it into a more basic level. So as Tony was talking, I'm thinking that just reminds me when I used to coach kids. And when I mean kids, 10 and 9-year-olds, your basic defending principles like the 5 S's as a defender. And Tony will know what I'm talking about. They're going to shut down, slow down, sit down, stay down, and the ultimate showdown. In that first clip, Dalot doesn't do any of that. And in the second clip, he doesn't do any of that. And then Shaw doesn't do any of that. So they're not doing these fundamental basics that you teach 9 and 10-year-olds about the basic defending principles. And as Tony said, these are high-level, top footballers, and they can't do the basics. And it just undoes everything else that's going well. And that's the shame of it, because at the highest level, it's these small margins. One question I did want to ask Tony, do you know when Luke Shaw actually goes out for that second goal, he goes out, he's gone out for that, and Dalot's in no man's land. Am I being kind to him? And anyone who knows me will know that I don't tend to be kind to Dalot. But is that because he was in a zonal situation? So he's adopted that position, marking nothing, because he's in a zonal marking position rather than having to react to a situation? Or is it simply, and this is an American football term, situational football and game intelligence, he just hasn't read the situation and gone out? So are we being unkind? If he's in that situation, he's got to play that zonal, that left centre back? Or should it be situational football? That should he show that game intelligence and, as you said, tell Luke Shaw, don't come in, stay, and I will do something as well. I don't know, but either way, they didn't do anything.
The zonal thing could be, obviously I'm not in the building, so I would be guessing, but the zonal thing wouldn't surprise me because Luke Shaw, if you go and watch it, right, I just took the screenshots off a match of the day. Anybody can go and watch it. Luke Shaw, actually, see if you go back a couple, Wayne.
It's number 4, I think.
I think it's 4, right? So Shaw is there. That's Shaw defending as a left back, what everybody would recognise as a left back, right? That's him. He then starts to, you've got that man pinned. He's pinned against the touchline. Just stand there. As long as you can see around your shoulders that there's nobody making runs inside, it's all right. So it might make sense that actually my zone's at the front of the 6-yard box. I better go back in. But if they do unit meetings the way I've seen unit meetings done, then Darlow and Shaw will be in the same unit meeting. So Darlow just, no, look, you stay there. Let's deal with the threat and then we'll swap back over. It looks to me like Luke Shaw is trying to swap back with Darlow. Oh, I'm not meant to be here. I should go back in. I've never... My mates who watch this and listen to this will be laughing their heads off because I'm never by talking about Luke Shaw defensively. I totally get what he can provide going forward, but in my opinion, he's not done that for quite some time. And I just think he's too easily targeted. I think he's naturally... it's even worse when Dorgu plays because Dorgu is a natural left-sided wing-back and wants to go forward. Shaw gets completely exposed because he can't cover that channel on his own. Now, 1v1, Luke Shaw can have good games, and I've seen him have good games, but it looks like people can't get past him. He's certainly a much better 1v1 defender than Diogo Dalot is. But that scenario for that goal was unforgivable with footballers at that level.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, what about the mix-up after half-time, Tony? I mean, we've gone through the second goal, well, gone through both of them really, but the general mix-up, I mean, what are we putting that down to? The fact that Forest had a bit of a vengeance with the concession of the goal. They wanted to prove something. United just switched off in general. Is there anything, sometimes that happens, right? We're not going to put that one on the manager too much.
I think, you audibly heard Sean Dyche shouting, get at him, when the balls went to his wide player for Ahmad. So I don't think you would need 10 guesses to figure out what had been said in that changing room at half time. And I have to say, when I'd probably agree with him, we are weakest at the minute in our full-back area. So I just think sometimes even top level sports people, one error becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 errors, and before you know it, you've conceded 2 goals. So I don't know. It's just one of those situations. But to credit the team and the group, and I have to say I agree with Amorim, the manager, that I think we would have disappeared down a hole and ended up with a Brentford 4-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
This time last year.
I agree with you on that. Do you know what, though? When he said that, I went back and looked at the numbers because I thought, how many points have we got from losing positions rather than points lost? And it's actually a fair amount under Amorim. It's not, there's been so many that I just stopped counting. Do you know what I mean? So, because it disproved the point of what he was trying to say. It was, like something like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I thought, well, if it's more than like 5 or 6, if it's 5 or 6 that we've got from losing positions in a year, then maybe he's got a point. But like, there's a trend of it, a trend not enough to analyze here and go the other way as well, but somewhere in the middle. And I think the point is not to do with could United have lost from a position where they were 2-1 down. It's could they recover from the head loss, which we saw after half time, which, well, you're quite right. The Brentford game last season was a great example. And this season, to be fair, just the head loss that went in and United didn't pull back, but they did this time round. Now, does that prove that United have moved on from where they were at Brentford a few weeks ago? Not necessarily. We're taking this game by game. We're looking at it, but we're on a run of wins and unbeaten run. Confidence begets confidence, so that's the way that you go with that. And United are. You might not hear begets on another football podcast this season, and that's how eyebrow we've become. We'll talk about a point that you brought up, Tony, that you wanted to put on the agenda for today, which isn't a problem that United have got for a few weeks, but it's something that's on the horizon. Having just criticised Ahmad defensively, United's big plus, apart from individuals, if you look at where that system's working, one of the big pluses has been the link up with Ahmad and Mbeumo. All right, taking a little time to get going, but you can see what he's supposed to do, and it does work in terms of Mbeumo's being by far one of our better players, probably the most consistent player all season. And you've got to say, even if Ahmad hasn't been flourishing, it's been helped by him because he's done what he's needed to do in order to help Mbeumo. And the partnership sometimes has been the most creative element of what United are doing. I mean, you look at Bruno, and I know the numbers are there, and you look at Cunha, and you say individually, yeah, he's fantastic. But as a systematic, that's the area that really looks good. And it looks like it's going to go to poo-poo when the African Cup of Nations comes around in the early year. Now, there probably got to be some truth in Shea Lacey being given more time playing with the first team at the moment. I know that over the season they've been doing this on a play-by-play, week-by-week basis, but there was a lot of praise coming out of Shea Lacey's stint with the first team, and maybe that's it's a very, very tough look for him that we don't have the League Cup. I was going to say Coca-Cola Cup to throw him in. Yeah, the old milk.
Cup. Jesus, I've only read about that in magazines, Mike.
No need for this ageism. Just because Tony's sprightly and young, and Mike and I can remember when it was sponsored by milk. So it's a shame that competition's not there for Shea Lacey to get his debut and get some minutes in it. But you can see why his name's been mentioned, because there's a very big gap on that side. Obviously, solves other problems. Kobe might get a few games when he's crying out for that move to Napoli. Might move some of the system around a little bit. Who knows how that's going to work out, but it's going to be a problem. Tactically, Tony, considering that is the major functional benefit of United's season so far, a bit of rotten timing for that to be coming around, especially if they start. I mean, it's not going to be a bad thing if they play well for the next 6 weeks. Of course it's not, but it will be a bad thing for the next 6 after that.
Yeah, definitely. I just it's just something we were talking about in one of my other United group chats with my mates. We were talking about one of the boys, I think it was my mate Gregor, brought it up that we're going to lose Mbeumo and Ahmad. Ahmad and Mbeumo are our two leading touches in the opposition's box so far this season. Checked that on Y-Scout earlier. So those are our two players that touch the ball in the opposition's box the most so far. So they are really, really key players. I wouldn't be surprised to see early moves in January for position players in wing back positions. I think the Ahmad playing as the right wing back is really, really positive on one side of the ball, but not so much on the other side of the ball. So you can argue maybe you play Dallo on that side whilst he's away at AFCON and hope that Dallo goes for a rerun in the team and suddenly learns to defend properly 1v1. But I won't hold my breath on that. Mbeumo, though, is going to be... Mbeumo's massive. Like, really, really, really big. For everything that we've said about Cunha, and Cunha's got plaudits and everything, Mbeumo is like the engine room of the two, and he's been so key for us. So yeah, it was just something I wanted to discuss. How big an impact is that going to have systematically? Well, if we had a right good mobile centre mid to play in the right side, we could cover that whole channel, then perhaps it wouldn't be a big problem. But we don't. So it will be, in my opinion.
I'm not sold on Agate doing that then, are you, Tony? Mike, well, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, United, that if you're looking at steps of progress, that's definitely one where you look at and go, yeah, I'm Cunha's biggest fan. That much is obvious based on everything I've said about him over the season. But even I can say Mbeumo's been our best player of the season so far. He's been very, very, very good, and it will be a big loss. He's settled into life at United very, very smooth. Like, you worry most of all about temperament, and he, ability obviously, but I mean temperament at United is massive, and he's just settled magnificently. His first touch is like velvet. His ability to move with the ball. I mean, look, people talk about him. I know I've heard this criticism. He's so predominantly left-footed, but so was Anthony, and the difference between the two is unbelievable. And it's a lot to do with composure, temperament, all of that kind of thing. You can say players got one trick. I won't buy that with Mbeumo. I think he's more than capable and he's right. I don't think Anthony was incapable and he's right. I just think he was too obvious with it. And I don't know if it's something to do with agility, the way that they move. Mbeumo, he's just so silky and beautiful to watch. And it makes it all the more of a problem that he'll be missing. And Ahmad as well, because he, like what Mbeumo's been for the last part of this year, Ahmad certainly was for the first part of the year as well. So we've got to give him his props for that. Even if he hasn't been as electric this season, there's no doubting what he was like last season. So, Mike, I mean, it is a tough one, right? I mean, how do you think? It's not even obvious. United don't have the replacements to go out there. Like Tony's saying, it's not just you can't go like for like with the players. That much is obvious, but then you can't even compensate in the areas next to them, and that's a big problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at it now and how Amorim's had his team set up in the past, certainly last season, is the obvious one is he will stick Bruno out wide. As a wide 10 that way. Listen, we don't know how he's going to do, what he's going to do. We don't know which players. For me, missing two big players, like two important players and players that work together, is the rotation at that time of the year. I think that's important. We can't underestimate that point, because I think we've got Villa on the 21st, and then Newcastle now is Boxing Day. That's only 5 days difference. Then 3 or 4 days after that, you got Wolves. So you got 3 games very close to each other. Now, would he play the same starting 11 in 3 consecutive games over that period? No. Then you got Leeds, isn't it, in the new year? So you got 4 games really close together. So you're missing the opportunity to pull players in and pull players out. And if they're 2 of your current starters, what happens then? So that's something that he's going to have to come up with an answer. Does it mean Kobe comes in? Yes, hopefully. Will it mean Bruno moves to the right? Okay, fine. But then it's who plays instead of Ahmad on that right wing back role, because Mazraoui is going to be gone as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's the third player. So that's the third place. That's 3 first teamers, pretty much. So that's a conundrum. And if he's going to play someone like Shea, if he's going to bring him in, well, he's got to get some game time soon, right?
Yeah.
It happens in a few weeks. So I hope Amorim's got a plan. I hope he's got a way of moving forward. And with only 1 game a week, and he actually mentioned that, didn't he, this week, where he said, I want to play some of these players, but with only 1 game a week makes it difficult. He's made it difficult for himself by not introducing some of these players earlier.
Yeah.
So it is tough. It's going to be tough, and those fixtures aren't easy at that time of the season. They're not.
Well, none have been for United this season. That's the point as well. Like, you can't afford to be forward planning too much. I mean, you can criticise us for not doing that, really, but the manager can't afford to be doing that. Can't look too far ahead. Can't look further ahead than the weekend. Unfortunately, Tony's prophecy, unless Spurs decide to pull the trigger before Saturday, I still think Frank will be in a job. So the prophecy of changing manager shouldn't fall on United this week. So it'd be an interesting dynamic to see what happens. then again it's United coming to town, Spurs playing at home. I do think, again, Spurs United has always been an entertaining game. Before we go, we'll just quickly do a little bit of a preview on this. Tony, again, we talking about tactics, but I feel like it's one of those where the form, the mood is going to play a big part in this. Spurs and United have tended to be like that over the years as well. And I just think, yeah, I know United have had a win down there. I think it was when Ronaldo scored, but generally they've been pretty poor at the new stadium. I don't know if that really plays much of a part here. They played well against Spurs in the game last season, but they got undone by a bit of bad luck in pretty much every game that they played against them, or bad goalkeeping as well that played a part in pretty much every game United played against everyone. But it's fair to say that whatever Thomas Frank was doing at Brentford isn't working yet at Spurs, apart from the first couple of games when the mood was high. Everyone was feeling good, but it's just not working. And Spurs, as a team of individuals, the same old problems that were there under Ange, Thomas hasn't really been able to sort of work in his favour yet. And that should work in our favour on Saturday, right? Now that United are starting to get a little bit of rhythm and consistency in their own play, you would hope that that'll be the thing that tells the difference on Saturday.
I'm not. I'm not sure. I just think, I don't. Professional footballers play in stadiums all over the world in different climates at different times. So I don't buy the stadium thing. What I do perhaps lay into is that Thomas Frank has a great record against Manchester United in the time that he's worked in England. He's got a bit of a hoodoo over us. And we've spoke about this before, the media drives so much of the narrative and the feeling around football clubs that fans get kind of swept up in it, and we are exactly the same. But look at the two clubs' records right now. I think we're on 17 points, they're on 17 points. So the narrative is around us that we're improving and they're getting worse. Whereas if you go and then look at goals for and against, we've scored 17 and conceded 16. They've scored 17 and conceded 8. So I think there was a big chat on TalkSport about their transfer window and how it was a complete and utter flop and failure. It just buys into this. I mean, 10 games or whatever we are into the season, you can't judge. You can't judge at this point. I think Saturday will be incredibly difficult. But you just never know. System-wise, I think we can cause him a lot of problems because he is quite rigid with the way he wants to play. And I think if we're at it, incredibly, we can go second at lunchtime. So we could go second, which what a carrot that is when that's your team talk right there. You just walk in, we can go second if we win today. You've got nothing to fear. Go and play your game. Because I think that stadium will get on their back.
They were, when they scored on Saturday, they were second temporarily, and then careered all the way down after the goals that they conceded. But yeah, there's a small gap, isn't it, between second and mid-table, which, I mean, look, United started this year the worst Premier League United team of all time, and, you know, now the Championship contenders. The truth has got to be somewhere in the middle, right? And it probably points to the fact, you know, I don't want to say I told you so, because I'm not here to tell you that Manchester United are one of the best Manchester United teams of all time. I won't be doing that. But I think it probably gives some truth to the fact that it's a poor Premier League if United are that far up and going to be second in November, considering the troubles that we've had. And 6 weeks ago, they were already saying that Amorim was going to be the next manager to be sacked. But, I mean, yeah, Mike, it's a tough one. I think what Tony's saying, you know, that Spurs do have, like, Frank's got this way of playing, he'll stick to it. But I think he'll look at United, he'll look at the individual problems that we've talked about today, he'll look at the weaknesses that we've got, the facts that you can tell, you can call straight now that Casemiro and Fernandes will play midfield. You know that Dalot will be playing as well. So, and you probably know that Shaw will play because Martinez hasn't had any minutes. So those are all areas for you to target. I mean, Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro are getting a little bit better in midfield, but not as a combination. I think they're just finding their feet in the areas that they're supposed to be playing in, and I don't think it's necessarily working as a combination yet. And yeah, I think those are the areas that we need to worry about again on Saturday. Are you confident that United can go there and win?
I mean, Spurs are coming off a defeat at home to Chelsea, and their home record's not good this year.
No.
They
Neither was Forest's, by the way. Theirs was abysmal.
Yeah, but they had a new manager.
Yeah.
So Spurs have scored 5 at home, conceded 5, and only got 4 points at home. I think they're in the bottom 3 or 4 for home form. And there is some discontent. Keep calling it White Hart Lane at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So if what we've been saying since the beginning of the show that the target is the fullbacks, who are the wide players that Spurs have got that they're going to do that? Kudus is an obvious one. They haven't got anyone else really. Kulusevski's still out, and they haven't really got a centre forward that's done anything this season. Richarlison is, by all accounts, had a poor season. I think Kolo Muani, did he come on or play at the weekend? And then Solanke's been out all season. So really, from a defensive standpoint, we should have enough to quell any attacks. We should. And, Spurs have got a good back 4, back 5, quite strong. The goals against column suggest that. But I think, yes, they're under pressure at home. And I think Tony's right. I mean, the carrot of going second, if on with a win, it's there for the taking, right? And it's 2 teams fighting for the same thing, essentially. But they're under more pressure, I think, certainly amongst their fans. They've got to go out and perform. And Spurs always got, the Spurs way is to go out and play front foot football. And that could play in our hands, especially on the break with Cunha and Buemo, Šeško, and Ahmad going forward on one side. Hopefully Mazraoui can get a game instead of Dalot. And then that way we've got opportunities to create situation, create chances, and hopefully get a goal or 2. It will be tough, but I think we've got a really good chance of getting 3 points on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of optimism there in the pod. Yeah, that's it for this week, I guess. I mean, I'm here for the optimism. Yeah, big carrot for United as against Spurs. Both teams struggling on an equal footing, but United have a big carrot. I mean, you could even say it's similar to when we played in the Europa League final, and they had a big carrot of Champions League football at the end of it, and how well United did in that game. So we've got plenty of optimism to back us up.
Just 1 point before you go, Wayne.
Yes.
Porro at right back for Tottenham. I've never rated Pedro Porro. I went to Hampden when Scotland beat Spain 2-0. And Pedro Porro got hooked at half-time because he couldn't deal with Robertson and Tierney absolutely rinsing him. And then he got booked, and then Hampden turned on him, and he gets subbed at half-time. So if we are to be successful on Saturday and Porro plays, I think it will be down Porro's side because he's the clear weakness. And they're, like Mike very correctly says, they're kind of back 5, even with Sarr and Bentancur, if you could call it, if they play. That's a very strong first 2 units of the pitch. So Pedro Porro, you can mark my words and you can come back to me if he has the game of his life, sets up 2 goals and a total shutout down that side. You can come back to me with that one. But I'm going to put my neck on the line and say, if we are successful, it'll be because Pedro Porro is not.
Yeah, I'll have you with that. That's good. He can strike a ball. I can tell you that. He can definitely strike a ball. But yeah, definitely suspect defensively. Why? By the way, I want this, Tony, to be a feature of the podcast. Just one more thing. Do the Colombo on us every week. Save a zinger for when I'm closing. You go, by the way, here's the best tactical analysis of the forthcoming game. Okay, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about Tony's point, whether or not he was right or wrong. Suspect he's probably more right than me and Mike. I'm as optimistic as Mike. I think I am anyway. I'm feeling pretty good about it, but you have to be right. But yeah, that's where we are. United draw at Forest. Pretty much glass half full from us this week, but again, criticising the individuals. But the manager gets off scot-free, apart from the fights that we didn't talk about it, and we won't do now because we've not got time. A little bit of criticism that he had about reacting late with the subs. again. But by and large, progress, and that's what we want to see. Sounding like a prime minister there. Certainly not that. Anyway, we'll be back next week, guys, to talk about the game against Spurs. Have a great week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Stay well.